Yo, what's up, guys, and welcome to the next part of the RU tier list discussion. I, of course, am PokeaimMD, and with me today I do have EonX, as usual. You can say hi.
Hi everybody, how's it going?
Okay. Anyway, today we're going to be, I think this will be the second to last part. We're going to be going through about 10 more Pokemon, if I'm not mistaken, and we have a bunch of good ones today. Also, if you missed any of the previous episodes, or you have no idea what the hell this is, basically, we're going through the entire RU tier list and giving our thoughts on the Pokemon, telling you what they do, how they fit in the tier, what are their main sets, and why they're good or not so good in this meta. But you guys can go ahead and check out previous episodes if you haven't in the playlist down below. Anyway, today we're starting off with a really good one, in my opinion. We have Medicham, and you can go ahead and take it away, bro.
Alright, Medicham is one of those Pokemon that you want to have an answer to, just straight up, because on the face it has 60 base attack, which looks like complete total garbage. But you have to account that it has the pure power ability, which doubles the attack stat that Medicham has. So that puny 219 attack stat turns into, what, like 438?
Yeah.
Something like that? Which is ridiculous when you're considering it has high power moves like high jump kicks, then headbutt, even has good coverage like Thunder Punch. So you really have to take this into account when you're team building. Like, if you don't have like a reliable answer to this, you're not going to win a ton of games. Most popular sets are Choice Scarf, which it has just enough speed to do base 80, which is definitely good enough for a Choice Scarf set considering the power that it has. A set I personally like is Life Orb, because that thing has next to no switch-ins, period. Because you can switch moves, you have incredible power behind your attacks. You have like high jump kicks and headbutt, thunder punch. That's like all you need in 3 moves in terms of coverage. So you can run something like bullet punch to have some priority, or drain punch to have a safer fighting type stab. It's just overall a very powerful Pokemon right now.
Yeah, and a few drawbacks to it, because we talked about its pros. A few drawbacks, base 80 is actually slower than Life Orb or Selgor, which can knock out Medicham with a bit of prior damage with the Bug Buzz. Another drawback is that your most spammable move can miss. Your best move can miss. High Jump Kick does have 90% accuracy, and if you do miss, you lose 50% of your max HP. And another thing
and you're probably dying after that.
Exactly. Another thing is the Pokemon that you're 2 KOing, like Alomola, for example, can protect on the second one, so you can't really stay in. And Pokemon like Slowking can come in on High Jump Kick. It's one of its main checks, I believe. Obviously, Thunder Punch can wreck that, and that's where the Life Orb set really has its advantages over the Scarf set. I personally love the Scarf set more because you can ruin something with Trick as well. But I think the Life Orb set really helps as a sweeper, whereas the Scarf set is just a late game cleaner, or something that has just potential to wall break. Obviously, its other stabs and headbutt isn't super spammable. It's not really getting on the Choice Scarf set anyway. It's not really getting the kills that you want, whereas High Jump Kick is. But again, we already talked about there's Pokemon like Slowking, I take it. There's Pokemon like Alomola that do have Protect on them. Even Registeel sometimes runs Protect. Sometimes runs Protect, and you'll be taking 50% from that. So you have to worry about missing from there. But obviously, Pure Power, which doubles its attack stat, makes it a ridiculously hard Pokemon to switch into.
Yeah, one of the reasons I do like Life Orb is because the metagame right now is very bulky. Most teams will have a Alomola or Slowking or Registeel, something like that, that is going to deter you from using High Jump Kick at some point during the match.
Yeah.
So basically, like, say Slowking comes in on your High Jump Kick and your Life Orb, you can switch right up to Thunder Punch. That thing is forced right back out because it's either forced out or it gets KO'd. A Alomola can't stall you with Protect because you can switch up to like Zen Headbutt or Thunder Punch and knock it out after a High Jump Kick switch in or something like that. So it definitely has perks. Like, I definitely agree, Choice Scarf is a very powerful set, and you need to prepare for it, especially if you're using offense. Like, that's one of the main reasons I'll use Hitmonlee, like Scarf Hitmonlee or Life Orb Excelgor on offense. It's because they outspeed this Pokemon.
Yeah.
And threaten it.
Yeah,
And I guess to compare like Scarf Hitmonlee, Scarf Medicham, like the reason I feel Scarf Hitmonlee is really good right now, and possibly better than Scarf Medicham. That's very debatable. But it has a safe move to spam to clean up, whereas Medicham does not. High
Close
jump kick.
combat, yeah.
Yeah, high jump kick can miss. You lose 50% of your health. Then headbutts obviously has resistances, immunities, and is also not perfectly accurate. It can also miss.
Yeah.
So Hitmonlee just has that advantage of being able to spam close combat when it just wants to clean up. It doesn't need to outright kill anything. It just like everything's weakened. Close combat is just cleans games.
Exactly, and another thing that Medicham lacks is knockoff. So Medicham doesn't have that move that it can go for that doesn't care what you do. You would say high jump kick, but obviously, like I already mentioned, Pokemon like Slowking, tank it, Alamo that's protect, and obviously you have to take into account missing. Whereas Hitmonlee is close combat and it also has knockoff, so it doesn't matter if you go into a Pokemon that takes on the close combat. If you get rid of their item, it becomes easier later. Another thing I do want to note is that. Medicham is not bulky at all. 60 base HP, 75 base speed def and attack. So it's not really tanking the hits. And one last thing that I did want to say is that it speed ties with Venusaur. So just because, if you're not Scarf, just because there's a Venusaur out in the field, doesn't mean that you outspeed it and knock it out with Zen Headbutt. If it outspeeds you and hits you with a Leaf Storm, you're gone. So
yeah, because pretty much every offensive Venusaur will run Timid.
Yes.
Because they want to stay ahead of Absol, they want to stay ahead of Hoopa and Magneton and stuff like that, so they're going to be running Timid.
Exactly. And Medicham, obviously, it just speed ties in that category, so it falls short in that category. And you have to hit on top of that, like...
yeah, like you have to hit your Zen Headbutt before you get blasted by Leaf Storm. I guess last thing to note on Medicham... another reason high jump kick not as spammable is the fact that, at least on a Scarf set, it's the fact that defensive Venusaur has been rising in popularity a bit lately, as a bit of an answer to Hitmonlee that can still self-sustain itself if it gets knocked off. So just kind of another thing to kind of note when you're using Scarf Medicham. If the opponent has Venusaur, it's not always going to be offensive, and you can just 2-hit KO through resistance.
Yeah.
It will sometimes be defensive, and you'll have to predict it with Zen Headbutt.
Correct. But overall, just a hard-hitting Pokemon. I think the Life Orb set has a lot more potential than the Scarf set. Scarf set's really good, but I think the Life Orb set just has a lot more potential versus the bulkier teams. Next Pokemon we have is Meloetta. This thing...
Another hard hitter.
Yeah, base 125 special attack, base 90 speed, which is just enough for Pokemon like Venusaur, Medicham.
Hitmonlee.
Yeah, and then it has...
Although you may not always want to risk that because Life Orb sets will carry Sucker Punch.
Yeah, definitely. Another thing I want to know is that it has 2 great stabs in the tier on top of a good move pool. Normal might not sound so good, but the only resistances would be rock types and steel types, obviously, and this thing has access to Focus Blast. So Psychic and Hyper Voice, what they're resisted by, Focus Blast just tears through if it can hit, obviously. Yep. Specs is just super spammable. It's kind of like I guess you could call it like a fast Exploud without Boom Burst or without Scrappy. So it's like, I don't know. If Exploud had this...
you have to predict a little bit more with Meloetta.
Yeah. But even a Life Orb set or even just a more offensive set. And the thing is, Meloetta has different forms as well. And it has just such great... has such great speed def as well and great base HP. So if you wanted to, you could use a sub-calm mindset with max HP to be able to set up on Seismic Tossing Registeel. Easily setting up on Alomomola Scald. Blastoise's Scald, and just tearing through the more defensive teams whose answers include, Diamond Storming you with the Ansi, which isn't going to do anything. But yeah, Subcom Mine definitely has its viability as well as Specs. Specs also has access to Trick and U-Turn, both of which are great on a choiced user, giving you the option to throw it off or even just giving you some momentum with a turn, as well as Scarf. And then I think from there, Eon can take it.
Yeah, another set I did want to go over is a more offensive Calm Mind set with Culver Berry. And while it won't be sweeping on its own, if you have like another Psychic type sweeper, like say Delphox or maybe Sigilyph or something like that, then Meloetta is just going to lure in that Dark type, live the Dark type move, and hit them with a +1 attack that's likely going to KO them, whether it be Hyper Voice or Focus Blast or something like that. So it's just another set I did want to bring up.
Yeah.
Like if you're wanting to help out like your Psychic type sweeper. But like you said, Specs is very, very powerful, but you do have to predict a little bit more with
Yeah.
it than you would X-Cloud, simply because Psychic is not spammable, with Pursuit being very common in the tier.
Correct.
Um,
But Meloetta and Dougie is such a great pair as well, guys, if you didn't know. Because
yeah.
Dougie gets rid of everything that Meloetta hates. Registeel, Drapion. So that's why running U-turn on Meloetta, if it's Specs, is not bad at all, because you can just go right out into Dugtrio, or right out even into Drapion if you run that too, because sometimes Slowking will be switching to Meloetta. So
that's stage 3 all over again. Those who don't know what I'm referencing, stage 3 of RU was kind of like that, but with Specs down Mega instead of Specs Meloetta. But kind of getting back on topic here, Subcall Mine is very powerful right now. It's not like one of those Pokemon that's going to hurt you right off the bat, obviously, because it's going to be running a lot more bulk than Meloetta's other sets.
yeah,
But considering how common Alomomola is, Registeel, Diancie, like you're setting up on those, or at the very least, just wasting their PP, and that's incredibly powerful. And keep in mind, Meloetta has base 128 special attack. It does not need a lot of investment to hurt after 1 or 2 boosts.
yeah.
Like that's just ridiculously high special attack. Like, not as crazy as Hoopa or Mega Camera, mind you, but still, like, it's crazy good. And Meloetta is just one of those Pokemon that, ever since RU started in XY, it has been good. Like, doesn't matter, like, the metagame around it, it has always been good. It has always had at least 1 or 2 sets that you have to be ready for.
Yeah, and I do want to mention also that there is another set of Meloetta, the Pirouette form, which basically when you use Relic Song, which does actually have a 20% chance to put you to sleep due to Serene Grace instead of its 10% chance, it does turn Meloetta into its Pirouette form, which gains 390 speed and then base 128 attack. So it swaps its special attack and the speed with the special attack and Spadef that it had before. And this set actually is not terrible, because it has a completely spammable move in close combat and return, and it even has knockoff as well, just to threaten you. So this is actually one of the sets that can get through the Pokemon that would normally check Meloetta. Like, for example, if Registeel comes in on Relic Song, it's not going to want to take a Life Orb close combat at all. One of the drawbacks to this set is obviously you have to use Relic Song, so it's better to use it, I think, if you know your opponent's going to switch out. But or even, but again, it's not always a drawback, because Relic Song does have that 20% chance just to put them to sleep for absolutely no reason. And it's an extremely fast Pokemon, only falling short of Pokemon like Jolteon, Aerodactyl, and a Selgor. But obviously that base 128 attack
is crazy high.
yeah, I would even say you could go Adamant with it. However, that does mean that you miss out on outspeeding Pokemon like Medicham and Venusaur, max speed Venusaur, prior to the Pirouette change.
Yeah, the other issue that it has is that it has to use Relic Song every time it comes in. The form change, unlike with most Pokemon, like, it will, like, go away whenever you switch out. So whenever you come back in, you have to use Relic Song again to set yourself up, and the opponent already knows what's coming, so they're probably just going to switch into their fighting type check at that point, because they know at that point on the second switch in, it's like, okay, this is Pirouette form, now I know what I have to switch into.
Yeah. One thing though is that you don't have to run fully physical with this set. You could run a special set with Relic Song, close combat, maybe knockoff, and then Psychic or Hyper Voice. So that way they can't 100% like just take advantage of you. You're not completely useless. I have used Mix Meloetta if I want to use 2 different things, because Hyper Voice is still spammable, and then I just want close combat for Registeel. So again, that's completely up to you. You're just gonna play around with EVs from there.
Yeah, like, Hyper Voice is probably the better move to use for a set like that, simply because you're putting it over return. So it still gives you a normal stat to use, just in your Aria form.
Yeah, exactly. But again, overall, like, just a super hard hitter.
Yeah, basically, Meloetta, really good Pokemon, has been ever since the start of Gen 6 in RU. So it's one of those Pokemon that has withstood test of time under any metagame that we have had up to this point. It's just found a way, whether it be with Specs, Scarf, the Relic Song set, Subcall Mind, Offensive Calm Mind, even especially defensive sets. Like, it does have a good support move pool like Heal Bell, Thunder Wave, Perish Song, which is not widely distributed in RU, so it does even have some neat support moves if you really want to go that route. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think it's that great in the current metagame, but I mean it has been in prior ones, and I mean you have base 100 HP and 128 special defense. You're taking on a lot of special attacks with investment, so it's there if you want. It's just I feel there's better options for it, but hey, it's there.
Yeah. Next up, we have Qwilfish. Qwilfish is a Pokemon that it's always been a good spiker up until recently. I feel like it's outclassed as a spiker by Pokemon like a Selgor, which can still break through, especially when there's Pokemon like Venusaur in the tier. Obviously, it does have Intimidate, it does have access to Scald, Taunt, and Thunder Wave. My boy's packing two of the best moves in the game, as well as Pain Split, so it can be a switch into Emboar, resisting its dual stab if you are running defensive, and it also has access to Toxic Spikes and Spikes, while also being able to absorb opposing Toxic Spikes as well. But right now it really falls short as a spiker, and my boy Eon will tell you why.
Yeah, so Qwilfish is one of those Pokemon that it was good in previous metagames, but just because of the construction of the tier right now, it just kind of falls short. Like, it's not one of those where it's just bad on its own merits. It's fine on its own merits. It's just not good in the current metagame. And what really hurt it, I feel like, is when Venusaur dropped. Because then you kind of need your poison type to, at the very least, be able to resist grass. And Qwilfish, obviously with that water typing, doesn't do that. It's neutral to grass, whereas stuff like Drapion, Garbodor, Weezing, they are able to resist Venusaur's stab moves. And Garbodor can also set up spikes and toxic spikes. Yeah, it doesn't have Thunder Wave or Scald, but it can still set up the entry hazards. Weezing still has toxic spikes. And then you have Drapion, who can run toxic spikes if you want, and it's a more offensive answer to Venusaur. So basically, Qwilfish, even though it's not bad on its own merits, like, it's got Intimidate, it's got Scald, Thunder Wave, like you said, even has Taunt. Like, it has the tools it needs to do what it wants to do, but the metagame just isn't kind to it right now.
Yeah, and there are also options. You can run the Focus Sash lead Qwilfish if you want. Though again, a Selgor does do it better, and pretty much the exact same thing. It's a fast spiker that can get rid of there before you Rapid Spin. What Qwilfish does is it explodes. What a Selgor does is it Final Gambit, so you can't defog or Rapid Spin. But again, it does have a decent speed to be able to outspeed Pokemon like Venusaur, and you can just spike on them. You could Taunt, Destiny Bond as well. Qwilfish has a lot of cool options. Actually, Qwilfish is one of those Pokemon that might get better if Alomola goes down, just because Rain in itself has the ability to get a lot better. As a physical attacker with Stab, Poison Jab, with even the ability Explosion or Destiny Bond, you can get rid of Venusaur, and then couple this with things like Seismitoad, and just Rain abuses that there. Qwilfish is actually a Pokemon that could definitely benefit from Aloe being gone, but again, we don't know how that will go. But.
Yeah, like I could definitely see like Rain being better overall, and obviously Qwilfish being a Swift Swim user. So I can see that. It's just like I said, like, it's not bad on its own merits. Like, we're not talking down on it because it's like just outright bad. Like,
I love Qwilfish.
Like some Pokemon are in RU. Like, I've used this like in previous stages. Like, it's been good like before, but almost immediately once Venusaur dropped, it just kind of fell off a lot simply because of the needs of the tier. Like, you need your Spiker to either not invite Venusaur, or at the very least, like, be able to work well with stuff that can deal with Venusaur. Like, obviously, Venusaur's not coming in on Mega Glalie at all, and Excelgor can at least damage it, or and it works decently well with stuff that can handle Venusaur. So they're a lot easier to throw on a team. Obviously, Garbodor checks Venusaur in itself, so it's self-sufficient in that regard. So yeah, Qwilfish is okay. Like, you can use it, but you're going to need a lot more team support than you have in the past.
Yeah, And again, if you want a more offensive spiker, typically you can go a Selgor from there. But I mean, there also are other options as well. He did mention a bunch of NU Pokemon that do have their use in RU that still do it, that can do it better anyway. But still, it's a Pokemon that I think it's just really dependent on how the meta is, depending on how good it is. Because it's a good Pokemon in itself, in its own right.
Yeah.
But
oh yeah.
like, it's a great spiker. It's always been a great spiker. But like in this meta right now, it just doesn't shine over anything else. Next up, we have a Pokemon that does shine, that really shines, Registeel. This mod.
I mean, look at his body. It is all nice and shiny.
Now, this Pokemon takes hits. Base 150 defenses on both sides. Even base 80 HP, which isn't completely terrible. Basically, Registeel is doing one thing and one... Well, okay, there's a few sets it can run, but the most common set you'll probably see is Stealth Rock, Seismic Toss, and then has Status. And what this set is, it's your normal resist, it's your go-to Pokemon to take on pretty much anything in the tier. Just to show you how defensive this thing is, Specs Analytic Magnezone with the Analytic Boost does not... Magneton, excuse me. Magnezone would be able to 2-hit KO. Magneton does not 2-hit KO you. Thunderbolt doesn't even do half. But that's just to show how just powerful this is. And one of the most common cores is Regimola right now, because Registeel does resist pretty much everything, if not everything, or can take everything that Mola is fearing, and obviously it doesn't care about Toxic either. One set that I actually like to run on it is Seismitoad, Toxic, Stealth Rock, and Rest with Heal Bell support. And basically meaning, since Heal Bell, Deanti, Registeel, Alamola, since that's so common of a core, it's so easy to get off Heal Bells.
Because you're going to be using that with like Diancie or Granbull, and both those are very good Heal Bell users.
Exactly,
so
exactly.
Very easy to use. Rest. But yeah, Registeel, if you need something to take special hits that are not like from fire or ground type Pokemon.
I mean, even then, it's still taking the hits anyway. It
yeah,
won't
like
die to one.
It'll still take one or two, but like pretty much anything that hits Registeel neutrally is not getting past it, at least not very easily. Simply because it has insane special bulk when fully invested. Like, I'll just like go into it right now. You probably already have it up like on your screen or something.
Yeah,
but it just has ridiculous special bulk, like 438 special defense, like fully invested. Like that is crazy good. It's kind of the same principle as Diancie, honestly, only with better HP and a different typing.
Yeah.
Where neutral special attacks, it's going to be a little while before you knock it out. Especially if it's backed by healing support from Alamola.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things, like, one of Registeel's greatest weaknesses is the fact that it doesn't have reliable recovery. You mentioned Rest with Heal Bell support. There's obviously Wish support from Alamola. So there's ways to circumvent that are pretty easy with the way the tier is constructed right now. One of the reasons Dugtrio is so good right now is because it can trap and heavily damage or outright remove this thing to where it doesn't wall you anymore.
Yeah, and Dugtrio just has to run a little bit of HP, that way it's not 2-hit KO'd by
Seismic
Toss after rocks. Yep. One thing
yeah, go ahead.
Okay. One thing I did want to mention again is why I also like Rest is because it allows it to beat the Defoggers and Rapid Spinners in the tier. Blastoise running commonly refresh and can Scald Burn you. You're Seismic Tossing, doing 100 damage every single turn. A little bit less after Leftovers, but you're beating it 1v1. Its Scald isn't doing crap. Even if it burns you, you just rest off. And an item that I love to run on it over Leftovers is actually Shed Shell. And what that means is, obviously, I can't switch it into knockoff, so I wouldn't switch it into Sneasel or something like that, unless I know they're banded into Icicle Crash. But that's why I have Alamola, who doesn't care about banded Sneasel. But, yeah, what that allows you to do is break free of Dougie and just do your job. Just tank hits Toxic and wear down your opponent. Toxic and Flygon wears it down completely. And it's not hard to trap opposing Heal Bellers, like... Diancie, for example, is trapped by Dugtrio, and it has to go for Heal Bell if it wants to fix it. And Dugtrio is only 2-hit KO'd. It's not O-code by Diancie. So, thankfully, because it has decent special defense, and Diancie doesn't run any special attack at all.
Yeah.
But
at least when it's running Heal Bell, yeah.
Yeah. So, Again, Reggie's just one of those mons that just will tank hits. You can splash it on your team. It's just a really, really, really good steel type, especially when packed with Wish support and Heal Bell support.
Yeah, I feel like as soon as Mega Steelix left, like this thing's just jumped in viability, like a ton. Because used to, you could switch in Mega Steelix and not really care at all about what Registeel was running, because you obviously had to stab Earthquake, you're immune to Toxic, you're immune to Thunder Wave. Like, it was basically a thorn in Registeel's side, really.
Exactly.
And as soon as it left, along with Tyrantrum, like the reason to use Bronzong dropped a lot. And Registeel just got to be the main defensive steel type again, like it was, like it has been at certain points throughout the history of Gen 6 RU. So, the main thing I will note that we haven't touched upon is the curse set. It's not nearly as good as it once was, but it's still an okay answer for, or not answer for stuff, but just basically a win con for stall, because you can fit a lot more Stealth Rock users on your team, and usually stall will want some sort of boosting win condition, whether it be like Sub-Calm Mind Meloetta, whether it be Curse Registeel, or just something else that I'm not thinking of off the top of my mind, like maybe Sub-Bulk Up Braviary. Like, they'll want some sort of boosting sweeper to finish off the opposing team once it's weakened enough. So just kind of did want to bring that up, that if you see it, don't think it came out of nowhere. It is a set. It's just not nearly as common as its especially defensive set.
But it's a set that can beat opposing stall. Well, it's tough, because Alamola can forever wall, stall you out of all your Iron Heads, like the Curse Registeel set anyway.
Well, by that same token, like whenever you rest, you don't have to sleep talk.
Yeah, exactly. Like, but the thing is, Alamola can just pass the Registeel and infinitely wall you. Yeah,
true.
Yeah. But it is a mon that can beat Pokemon like Bulk Up Braviary, things like that.
Yeah, like well, even then, like it kind of comes down to who gets the critical hit first, and like you're having to go through subs. So, like I don't really like that set in the current metagame. Like I said, it's not nearly as good as it once was, but it's still there. But odds are, if you prepare for especially defensive Registeel, you'll be fine against Curse Registeel. They run the same EVs, so
yeah, and they just have Iron Head instead of Seismitoad.
Yeah, like that's literally the only difference. Like basically the only difference is you can't set up on it with Hoopa. Like, that's basically it.
Yeah. But Registeel is just one of the best, if not the best, steel type in the tier. And that's with running steel. That's with opposing steel types like Escavalier in the tier and Magneton. But Registeel is definitely a high, like top tier steel type.
Yeah, it's easily one of the top 3 steel types, like without a doubt.
Easily.
And like you said, you can easily make an argument that it's the best steel type, just like you could with Magneton and Escavalier. Like,
exactly.
All 3 of them are amazing. Like if you're wanting a steel type, you'll use one of them, because Registeel is great for defensive purposes. Magneton and Escavalier obviously hit really, really hard.
Yeah. And
Escavalier can even run like a more defensive pursuit support set, like if you're wanting to blend power with support. So
exactly. Next Pokemon on the list is Rhyperior, and it is I think it's the hardest hitting ground type in the tier outside of Camerupt, on the physical side anyway.
Yeah, on the physical side, it's outright the hardest hitting ground type.
Yeah.
And rock type too, now.
Yeah, this is true. But it's a Pokemon with Solid Rock, which allows it to take the weaker special attacking moves, especially if you're invested in Spadef. And it's one of those Pokemon that has 416 attack, 130 base defenses, and great dual stab, Earthquake, and Stone Edge, as well as a move pool to be able to deal with a Pokemon that might take that or resist that. I'm talking about Flygon. Flygon is destroyed by Ice Punch or Avalanche. Yeah. And then there's also options like Mega Horn if you see the Uxie, or even a rare Mesprit in the tier, or even being able to just smack Meloetta. Like Rhyperior, they call it Rhydon? I don't even remember. Rhyperior just has an amazing offensive just presence in the tier. And why don't you talk a little bit about some of its sets?
Yeah, so obviously you touched on the especially defensive set. And that set can also run Mega Horn for another reason, that's Slowking, because you'll 2-hit KO Slowking on the switch-in, obviously, because Scald, you're not taking well at all, you risk a burn, etc. But honestly, on the tank set, I like running Stealth Rock, Rock Blast, Earthquake, Ice Punch. And the reason I run Rock Blast over Stone Edge is because odds are that's going to be your flying type check, or at least one of your main flying type checks. And what would a flying type check be if you can't beat sub bulk up Braviary?
Yeah.
Like Rock Blast allows you to hit through sub and still deal damage. Like you pressure it super hard. I like Ice Punch on it because obviously you're setting up Stealth Rock, so getting rid of Flygon is really, really nice. You force it to either damage you or it just straight up dies. Like for getting rid of hazards that you could probably set up later. Now the EV spread, I know there's one on site, and I'm actually helping with the revamp of that right now on the forums. But the spread on site is a little bit outdated in my opinion. The spread I run on it, at least with the tank set, is 184 HP, 16 attack with adamant, 204 is special defense, or yeah, actually it's yeah, I messed up. I actually messed up TVs on it. Ha, go me. 212 special defense and 96 speed. And what that does, it lets you outspeed max speed mega camera, so you can smack that thing with earthquake, so it can't hit you with earth power. It also outspeeds like max speed Cavalier, the base 50s like Diancie and Registeel, so you can hit them with earthquake again. You hit, obviously, leftovers number with the HP investment, jump point with the attack investment, and then everything else is in special defense, so you can take the weaker special attacks that you're wanting to take.
Yeah. And on top of that, Registeel, Rhyperior. Rhyperior does have a few other sets it can run, like Choice Band, for example. Rhyperior actually just has just enough speed to be able to outspeed Pokemon like Alomola in the tier, so you're 2-hit KOing them with Choice Band and Earthquake.
Extremely powerful hitter. Like, it's definitely risen in popularity lately. Like, I've actually been saying, like, for a couple of months, like, I think ever since like Tyrantrum left, like people have been talking about like maybe Aggron can be better. It's like no, right? Banded Rhyperior is like scary as crap because
416.
You have like incredible attack. Like I think it's like it's like it's crazy high. It's stupid high attack.
Yeah, it's over 600.
Like yeah, it's like 672 or something. Like after a choice band boost, like. If you pick the right move, you're 2-hit KOing whatever comes in.
And the thing is, all you have to do is click Mega Horn once or Ice Punch once, and Flygon is either 2-hit KO'd or gone. Like, and it's not a switch into Rock Blast or Stone Edge anymore. And again, it's just a Pokemon that can outspeed Pokemon like Alomola. Alomola runs 166 speed. That's its natural speed. And you hit 179. I've also run in the past. I know in SBL I ran Jolly Rhyperior. Because
Blastoise.
Yeah, back when Blastoise wasn't speed creeping a lot, but this would allow me to outspeed them and 2-hit KO them with the Earthquake, but that's not something I run these days. And Rhyperior also has another set that I can run, which is Rock Polish. And Rock Polish, when a team of Alomola has either been weakened or Alomola has gone itself, honestly, it just wrecks through your opponent. I think Mega Horn is very good on the Rock Polish set, but because if I'm not running Dual Dance, which is Swords Dance Rock Polish for everybody watching, I actually like to run either Mega Horn or or Ice Punch still, just because of Flygon in particular. Yeah.
But Mega Horn just straight kills Slowking.
Exactly.
And still hits Flygon, and it's not knocking you out with a single hit because you have Solid Rock and great physical bulk.
Exactly.
So you can eat a hit from it and still like 2-hit KO it with Mega Horn. Like you can afford to do that. The only real thing I don't like about Rock Polish is that it doesn't let you really use Rhyperior a lot, like early in mid-game. Like with the tank set, you're using that throughout the game until like you just don't need it anymore, or it can't take any more hits. Then obviously Choice Band, you're wanting to wall break with that early and mid-game. But I guess if you're wanting like a Rhyperior that's better late game, then Rock Polish is your better bet. Yeah. But I do feel it's the weakest of its 3 sets right now.
Yeah, I like Choice Band a lot. You just don't switch into that.
Yeah.
It just comes out and just kills something. Or kills something.
Yeah, it's another one of those Pokemon, and we've said it throughout the series with pretty much every hard hitter, but it's especially true for Rhyperior. Resist does not mean survive. because even if you resist something, it has a move for it, like Bronzong, 2-hit KO'd by Mega Horn.
Yeah.
Flygon dropped immediately by Ice Punch. Stone Edge, Earthquake, you always hear like Edgequake is great coverage. Imagine that coverage as stab coverage.
Yeah.
On like 672 attack.
Exactly.
Like, obviously, you have your problems with those moves because Stone Edge is inaccurate. Earthquake obviously lets Flygon in for free, lets Flying types in for free. Although I'm not sure I'd really initially switch in Flying types on this thing.
Yeah.
But obviously, like, once you figure out a choice band and you have something where it has to Earthquake against or it dies or something, then yeah, you can go ahead and risk that.
Exactly. Probably one of the main switch-ins in the tier, not to cut you off, but the main switch-in will be Alomola in the tier, just to, because it's a Pokemon that can come in and scout what set it is. It's not going to die at any one hit. If it goes for Earthquake, then you can protect and then swap out to your ground immunity. If it goes for Stone Edge, you can protect and then swap out to like something like Registeel or Flygon. So
yeah, I guess to kind of end things off with Rhyperior, like we've talked about how great it is, but it does have some shortcomings in the tier. Like obviously, the tank set, especially if you're not using Ice Punch, is going to invite Virizion like easily, simply because it resists stabs. It can take a Mega Horn even if you predict it, whereas Ice Punch is just like if it's not knocking it out, it's dropping it to where it can't switch in again. Obviously, Venusaur is a major thorn in its side because it's a powerhouse that can switch into Rhyperior, especially, and even like the physically defensive set can switch into tank Rhyperior for days. Like even Ice Punch isn't doing a ton.
But offensive cannot switch into Banded Earthquake.
No,
it's gonna die after Stealth Rock. Like
and even physically defensive, like 2-hit KO, like it has to use Synthesis to ensure that it can come back in again. So, like that's the advantage of Choice Band Rhyperior. Even the faster stuff that can take a hit, if they have reliable recovery, they're probably gonna have to use it so they can come in again. So you essentially still get momentum.
Yeah, exactly. Rhyperior, again, one of those hard-hitting mons that has multiple sets in the tier. It can be a tank set. It's your resistance to normal, and it can also just take on Pokemon like Diancie. And Solid Rock obviously just allows it to tank. That's the main ability you're going to run on it. Doesn't really have anything for Reckless, unless you want to run like Double Edge.
Yeah, like Double Edge is literally the only move that it has. Like, that's it.
Yeah, Solid Rock is definitely your go-to for Rhyperior. Do you have anything else to add before we move on?
Just use Choice Band more. It's incredibly powerful. I feel like not enough people use it, and if you're thinking, like, if you've been thinking all this time, like, oh, I'll just use Aggron as a replacement to, like, Banded Tyrantrum, forget Aggron. Just use Banded Rhyperior. You'll be just fine.
But next up, we have Rotom Cut. I'm in the cut. Rotom-C. Rotom-Mow. And I like this Pokemon a lot. I don't like it as much now because Venusaur dropped down to the tier, but it was one of those mons that can just pivot in on Alomola, threaten it with the Volt Switch, and then get in Pokemon like hard hitters like Exploud, or at least back in the day. It has a decent speed stat as well, 298, allowing it to outspeed Pokemon like Scarf, Medicham if it's also Scarf, but also just falling short of Pokemon like Hitmonlee. And I actually really like Specs Rotom back in the day. Because before Registeel was in the tier, excuse me, not before Registeel. Registeel was always in the tier. Before
it was really good in the tier.
Yeah, before Venusaur was in the tier. This was a Pokemon that sort of similar to Magneton, where you can't switch into this. Yeah. You couldn't switch in, even if you resisted it. Your resistances were like Tangrowth, which was taking, if it was non-AV Tangrowth, it was taking like, I think it was almost 2 KO'd by Specs Leaf Storm.
Yeah, it was crazy powerful.
Yeah.
Another problem that Rotom has, I feel like, is the fact that Virizion is so powerful. Like, yeah, you can run hidden power flying for it.
Yeah. But
I mean, that's just kind of goes to show like the influence Virizion has on this thing, because it's switching into your dual stabs. It commonly carries Lum Berry, so even if you're packing Will-O-Wisp, it doesn't really care the first time, and tricking it. Specs can be risky because Calm Mind Virizion exists, and that can just use an immediate boost to do damage. But the main thing I want to touch on with Rotom Cut is the fact that it's a slower electric type that isn't trapped by Dugtrio.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't have to worry nearly as much about it because it has Levitate, which bypasses Arena Trap. So that's really, really nice for it. It gives it a huge niche over Magneton, because obviously Magneton has to worry about
Exactly.
Dugtrio, whereas Rotom Cut doesn't.
Doesn't care.
So, like, if maybe you're using Specs Magneton and you just don't like the fact that you're having to predict around Dugtrio every game, then Rotom Cut can be nice, because obviously Magneton has the typing to take some hits, and while Rotom Cut doesn't have as good of a typing to take those hits, it has better bulk. Like,
Yeah.
2107 defense is definitely not bad, and obviously Jolteon's problem, it can't take hits. So it's not an easy replacement over Magneton, whereas Rotom Cut kind of is.
Another
Like,
thing.
it won't be as powerful on the Switch, obviously,
Yeah.
but not worrying about Dugtrio is also nice.
Another thing that it has over Magneton is that it doesn't care what move it locks itself into. Alamola will go down, or it's going to take a lot. Magneton, it's dual stab. If it goes for Flash Cannon, Alamola can stay in. But if Rotom goes for Leaf Storm or Thunderbolt or Volt Switch, Alamola is not going to appreciate that either way.
Yeah.
And speaking of Dugtrio, it's actually a great partner for Rotom because it gets rid of Registeel, and it also has Aerial Ace, so it can get rid of a weakened Virizion if it's choice banded. Talking about the Dugtrio anyway, allowing Rotom to just spam its dual stab. Because when Registeel and Virizion are gone, or even Venusaur, if it's offensive Venusaur, I guess Dugtrio can pick it off if it's about like 40%. But when those Pokemon are gone, Rotom is a lot more free to spam its hits, and it has decent speed to outspeed Pokemon that would outright OHKO it. Outside of Drapion, which definitely can take it out, and Selgor, there's Pokemon like Emboar, which are being wrecked by Specs Thunderbolt, Exploud dropped by Specs Leaf Storm, so it's like, it's a Pokemon that doesn't care what move it locks itself into, especially if you have a ground type, because it obviously has that grass stab, but it does have to watch out for the other grass types in the tier, especially Venusaur, which threatens it immediately with Sludge Bomb.
Yeah, and obviously Virizion can use it as setup fodder.
Yeah, exactly.
Another set I do want to kind of touch on is the fact that obviously you can run Specs, you can run Scarf, although I don't really like Scarf in the current metagame, but you can also like run Life Orb with Volt Switch, Leaf Storm, and Power Flying, and then that allows you to like run Will-O-Wisp, which if the opponent has Venusaur, like, they're bringing it in, like, there's no doubt, like, they're gonna bring in Venusaur because that's their main switch-in.
Yeah.
And you can hit that with a burn, slowly wear it down, and after 2 rounds of burn damage and a Life Orb Volt Switch, it's probably around the point where Dugtrio can knock it out.
Yeah.
Like, so that basically, you only have to deal with it two switch-ins, and then you're free to spam your moves until you go down. Obviously, it does have a pretty nice support move pool. Like I've already mentioned, Will-O-Wisp, Trick on these choice sets can like wreck common walls. You can also run stuff like Pain Split on a more defensive set, although I'm not the biggest fan of that, but it's there. Same thing with Thunderwave. Like, if you're wanting to, maybe you have a slower team, you need paralysis supports, it can run that. I just feel like there's better stuff in the tier like Slowking and Gramble to spread paralysis. But again, it's there if you want it.
Yeah. And again, it's just one of those mons that it creates opportunities for itself if you are running Will-O-Wisp to be able to do some work versus it. I would add Wish support, though this is more of offensive, so you don't necessarily need it. But if it's a Pokemon with no recovery, I would definitely use some type of support on the team. Rotom Alamola is not a bad. The thing about Alamola is it's so splashable that it doesn't matter what you pair it with, and Rotom is definitely one of the mons that that benefits from that. So
yeah, and I guess the last thing to touch on with Rotom Cut is the fact that it's just one of those Pokemon that it's not like super amazing by any stretch of the imagination, but it'll pull its weight. It'll do what it's supposed to do. Like, it won't blow you away by it, but it'll still like, as long as you support it decently well, it'll work just fine. Like, it's just not as splashable as like the top tier Pokemon, but it's still something that's perfectly viable in its own right. You just have to know its shortcomings and how to overcome those.
Yeah, definitely. Next Pokemon in the tier is actually one I really like, but I've always failed to do anything with it. When it dropped, I thought it was just gonna be a great Pokemon on the tier, but that's Scrafty, and I'll actually talk about its downsides before I talk about how good it is. I think two of its main downsides is it's so slow, base 58 speed, so even at +1, you're not outspeeding
any Scarf user
any
ever.
Scarf user at all. Even at +2, maybe. At +2 potentially, but another thing is it's weak. It has good moves like high jump kick and knockoff, but with base 90 attack, even boosted, it's incredibly weak. You're failing to like 2-hit KO any of the bulkier mons, unless it's like 100% like weak to it, like Registeel.
Like, just to give you an idea, like Diancie never runs physical bulk unless it's like a physically defensive call mindset. But like just max HP Diancie, you can't even OHKO that with high jump kick.
Yeah.
Just to kind of give you an idea, like that's a neutral target with a 130 base power stab move at +1. You're still not OHKOing it.
Yeah, that thing is knocking you out with Moonblast. 100%.
Yeah, a set I personally like with it, and I've used it for a while, and it's not. It's Choice Band Intimidate,
Okay.
and basically. It doesn't work like most other choice band users work. Whereas most choice band users simply want to get damage. Like all they care about is like the damage they give out. I would use choice band Scrafty as a offensive pivot. Because it has Intimidate to soften physical attacks. You don't need all that much speed to outspeed a Alomomola, I think. All you need for it is like 60 speed to outspeed a Alomomola. You can obviously run a little more, just to make sure like it's not trying to speed creep you a little bit or something. But that gives you like a lot of investment into your HP to become more of a bulky offensive pivot.
Yeah.
Again, like it's not for every team. It was definitely better when Mega Steelix and Tyrantrum were in the tier because then you actually had an offensive check to those.
Yeah.
But it is something I do like with it. I did want to make sure I bring up. A lot of people don't exactly like it simply, but I think that's because they just look at it in the wrong way. They're looking at it as a powerful wall breaker,
But it's not.
Yeah, that's not what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to be an offensive pivot that just has good damage output, a spammable move and knockoff. You have the free move slot to run Drain Punch, so you don't have to risk high jump kick all the time. Basically, it's I run high jump kick, knockoff, Iron Head, Drain Punch. You have everything you need in terms of coverage in 3 moves, so you have that free move slot for Drain Punch.
Yeah. Another set that I think actually has a lot of viability right now, especially with the fatter teams, is the bulk up Shed Skin set. If you can get rid of Diancie, this just wins versus fatter teams. It actually just wins. You can just run max def, max HP. You could even run a little bit of defense. That way you could take close combat from Virizion, which I'm pretty sure you take naturally if it's unboosted. But it would be bulk up rest. Shed Skin obviously giving you the ability or the potential or the chance, whatever you want to call it, to wake up whenever. And this just means you can also take status. If something burns you like Blastoise, you can Shed Skin it off. And bulk up rest, Drain Punch, knockoff. You can even run a little bit of speed if you want for Alomomola. Again, it's only 60 investment.
Yeah, it's only 60 EVs.
Yeah.
The main thing I don't like about the bulk up set is like it takes a long time to be threatening. And at that point, I would probably just use Gallade because it has more immediate power.
Yeah.
I mean, I can see why like you'd want like to use Scrafty in that manner because it does have Shed Skin, so it doesn't have to waste a move slot on sub. But I just feel like Gallade does that in particular better simply because it has I think it has the same special bulk as Scrafty. Obviously, Scrafty has much better physical bulk, but at the same time, Gallade is faster. It also has more raw power, so it doesn't need to boost up as much to be a threat. But, I mean, it is there, but I do think it is the weakest set Scrafty has, simply because Gallade is around. Like, it's useful,
but I mean, it 100% beats fat teams, though. All you gotta do is trap Diancie with Dugtrio, and you win, though. So it might be a slower...
The only other thing I would mention on that is like there's also Granbull, which you can't easily trap, but you can wear down more
Yeah,
reliably
yeah.
simply because it does have reliable recovery of its own.
Yeah, and you knock it off, and it's gone. Like, even then, like, Gramble is forced to come in on things like Flygon. Well, I guess you pair Adamola, yeah. But I mean, if you boost up enough, dude, Gramble's not going to touch you.
Yeah, like, unless it's that Pixie Plate set that I like running.
Yeah, yeah. But if you're
but-
+3, like, it's not killing you. Well, I guess you are 4 times weak to it, but it's like things like that. Like, and you are faster than it too. So that's one thing to remember. Another set that I actually like a lot versus fatter teams as well is Sub Dragon Dance. I've actually seen this versus Shake's team that he made with the Oxy. I just saw it just straight up beat him. Well, or at least attempt to beat him before his opponent choked. But Substitute Dragon Dance allows you to, again, just bypass Alamola's Scald and then just hit hard. Not necessarily good. It's very
very team dependent.
Yeah, yeah.
A lot like the bulk up set is. Like, I feel like those two sets in particular are very team dependent. Like, they can destroy fatter teams, but against faster paced teams, it's just
and
not going to do much at all.
that's Scrafty's issue too versus faster teams.
That's honestly why I like the choice band pivot set, simply because you can get in on physical attacks that you either resist or take neutrally, and then immediately have enough power to threaten faster teams.
Yeah.
Like, it's going to perform worse against bulkier teams, obviously, because you can't boost up against them.
Yeah.
But I guess that's why I kind of like the Band Intimidate set, because that kind of fixes one of the main issues Scrafty has, and that's his performance against pretty much any sort of team that has decent speed. Because it's not like one of those Pokemon like X-Cloud where it's just weak against like offense because it can't get in. Like, pretty much any team that's decently fast is going to make Scrafty struggle because it needs to boost to be a major threat if you're not running Choice Band. Because Choice Band can run Adamant and you obviously have the immediate boost. Whereas Dragon Dance, obviously, once it gets like a boost or two, is incredibly threatening. You don't want to mess with it, but you need that boost.
Yeah. Exactly. It's just a hard hitter outright that doesn't really care about its slow speed. Is pretty much like what he's saying. Like, yeah. Again, Scrafty is just so, I think, matchup dependent, and the set as well. Like, you can win versus fatter teams, but versus just faster teams, I don't think Scrafty shines at all.
Yeah, it's very much hit and miss, and that's like the main thing you have to consider with Scrafty. When you use Scrafty, you need to make sure most of the rest of your team does well against offense, because Scrafty won't do well against offense. But by that same token, you don't have to worry as much about fatter teams because Scrafty is just decimating most of those.
Exactly. Next up we have Seismitoad. Another Pokemon that I feel has kind of fallen from grace. A lot better during the Mega Steelix and Tyrantrum era, just because it was a natural stealth rocker that resisted Heavy Slam and Head Smash. But obviously with Venusaur falling into the tier, Virizion rising up, it's just a stealth rocker that doesn't necessarily do what it does best. Like, Blastoise spins on it and toxics it and refreshes off its own toxic. It obviously has access to Scald and Knockoff as well, but I don't know, it's just one of those mons that just doesn't have the same, like, it's like Qwilfish. It's not bad. It's not bad at all. It just it really depends on the meta itself. And right now, I just think it's just not one of the best like it could be.
Yeah, I can definitely agree with you on that. Like, my main thing with Seismitoad is the simple fact that, like you said, it was a natural stealth rocker that could check both Mega Steelix and Tyrantrum.
Yeah.
And I feel like the problem it has right now, like you said, kind of not of its own doing, but just the fact that there are other good bulky waters. There are other good stealth rock setters. And unless you need both roles combined into one, which obviously Seismitoad can do pretty well, like, it's just not going to be the best option for you.
Yeah, definitely. I did have other options too that I like to run. I actually, back in the day, before Venusaur was in the tier, when Tangrowth was still in the tier, I loved to run offensive Life Orb Stealth Rock, and what it does is it had access to, I'd use like Hydro Pump, Earth Power, Stealth Rock, and then Sludge Wave, and then Sludge Wave would knock out Tangrowth after a bit of prior damage from the Life Orb set. and it had just enough speed to be able to outspeed Pokemon like Adam and Emboar, like Modest, Exploud, and from there just hit hard.
Yeah, I mean, I still kind of like that set right now simply because it gives you a chance to beat Blastoise. It gives you a chance to deter Virizion from coming in. It gives you a chance to pressure Venusaur upon switching. Like it kind of helps to deal with some of the problems Seismitoad has, at least to the best of your ability.
Yeah.
The main thing I feel like just kind of holds it back is just the move pool. Like even though it's really good, it's just strange.
Exactly.
Like, it's a water type that doesn't have Ice Beam. It's a water type that doesn't have Waterfall. Like, it's just weird.
Yeah.
If it just had one of those, you could just run. Like, obviously, I would honestly run a physical set right now if it could get Waterfall.
Yeah.
Because Ice Punch just destroys Virizion upon switching because its physical bulk is only okay if you're like max attack or something. You're doing a lot to that thing. Whereas Sludge Wave barely 2-hit KOs because Virizion has natural special bulk that's really good. Because obviously if you went physical, you hit it with Ice Punch, it can't switch in on you again.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't think it would knock it out outright, but you at least keep it from switching in again.
Yeah, and it does have higher base attack than special attack. One thing I do want to know, and I actually just calced it on the screen, is that Modest Earth Power with Stealth Rock does 2-hit KO Venusaur, max HP Venusaur. So, and you are faster than the defensive sets. So that's something to note. Another thing they had was Sludge Bomb over Sludge Wave just for the 30% chance to poison. But I think the power is like better overall because if you're going to be clicking Sludge Wave, just the 5% increase in power does matter versus Pokemon like Virizion, for example, where you're trying to actually hurt them upon switching, or if you want to pick off a Venusaur at about 80% with Sludge Wave into Earth Power, which a Sludge Bomb would not be able to do. And of course, you could run Scald over Hydro Pump because your most spammable move is probably going to be Earth Power over everything else.
Yeah.
But it's an option. It also has Swift Swim as well, which again is another thing that could put in a lot more work if Tangrowth is gone, because this thing's natural stat is actually really, really good. Ground and water. That's a Pokemon that can deal. That's a water. That's a rain type. That's a water type, a rain abuser that can deal with Registeel. That can power through bulkier teams. Also has access to knockoff for Slowking, and it's just things like that. Like Seismitoad. Again, it's a cool Pokemon, but like the tier right now, it doesn't really shine.
Yeah, like the tier. Well, the tier is a little bit unkind to it. Like it's better off than Qwilfish is, I think, at least right now. Simply because it does have that roll compression of bulky water and Stealth Rock Setter.
Yeah.
If you need it, but yeah, like just the fact that the tier isn't super kind to it right now, and its move pool is just strange. Like good, but strange.
I do want to note, not to cut you off, but I have lost the sub Power Punch Earthquake Ice Punch, which does set up on Alamola and Registeel because it does have base 105 HP, and I have lost to that set.
It's actually true because you don't need like max HP investment to get 101 HP subs.
I'm just saying, I have lost to that set.
I guess the last thing I'll touch on are its abilities. Like we mentioned Swift Swim, it has Water Absorb, which is really nice for a Pokemon of its typing. That turns a neutrality into water,
immunity.
with water into an immunity. And it also has Poison Touch, which, yeah, it's a bit gimmicky, and you're probably not going to ever use it, but, I mean, it's there, like, if you really want it.
Yeah, and, like, I mean, if you use Knockoff, if it had Waterfall, I'd definitely use that. Because if I go for Waterfall and I poison Virizion, that's
Sick.
amazing. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, it's a cool mon. I actually want to play around with the sub Power Up Punch set because I think right now it actually has a lot of potential. If there's any metagame running around where sub Power Punch Seismitoad has potential, I think it's now with Alamola, Registeel being so common. But
yeah, and I've been meaning to kind of play around with the offensive Life Orb set because I feel like a bulkier version of that would be really good right now because, or maybe not really good, but at least like its best shot, simply because it combines the bulky water with an offensive stealth rocker for like more offensive teams.
Yeah.
Which back in the day is the reason you would use this. Like you would need like a fire type check on bulkier teams that could last long enough for your offensive pressure to take over. So I just haven't gotten a chance to play around with that yet because I've been playing around with Virizion set, the Pixie Gramble set, obviously like Rhyperior, so I'll get around to it, just not in time for this apparently.
Yeah, and one other thing I want to say is you might be saying, well, isn't Seismitoad amazing because it resists both Magneton's hits? One, Flash Cannon is doing a lot. It's doing like 30 to 40% almost with Analytics Choice Specs boost. And two, Magneton does tend to run HP Grass. It can run Hidden Power Ice, but HP Grass is still something you have to fear. And the second they HP Grass your ground type, nice Volt Switch just running around. So like
yeah, like it's basically the same conundrum every other ground type in the tier
exactly.
has outside of Ductrio. Like you have to be afraid of this thing, whereas Ductrio just comes in, Earthquakes, goodbye.
Yeah, exactly.
Like every other ground type, like Rhyperior, gone to Flash Cannon, Seismitoad, gone to Hidden Power Grass, Flygon, gone to Hidden Power Ice. Like you have to figure out, like with Seismitoad, you have to figure out what Hidden Power Magneton's running before you can safely switch in.
Do you guys see the common trend that we're talking about Ductrio being so great? This is why I think Ductrio is actually the quote-unquote problem over Alomomola, and this is why I would actually, again, this is not the video to talk about it, but I put it briefly in my Rex thing that I think Ductrio is actually the issue over Alomomola in itself. But then again, Pokemon like Magneton would just be too good, I think, also, but they balance each other out. Anyway, next up, take it away, bro, Sigilyph.
Alright, Sigilyph is pretty nice Pokemon this year. It's always been pretty decent at the very least, if not really good. And it's just a really awkward Pokemon to switch into. I think I mentioned this in a couple of previous videos, but like a lot of the teams I built recently don't switch into this thing very well.
It's hard to,
Yeah, simply because it just has really strange coverage. Like it has, I think the most common set is like Roost 3 attacks with Psychic, Heat Wave, and Energy Ball, but it has some odd coverage moves. Like it has Dark Pulse, it has Secondary Stab and Air Slash, it has
Dazzling Gleam.
Yeah, that's Dazzling Gleam to wreck your Dark types. It's got a really good move pool. It's just really awkward to switch into. Like I'm not saying that's a bad thing at all. That's just a testament to how cool it is to run. One of its main perks is obviously Magic Guard, which it's flying type, so weak to Stealth Rock? No. Magic Guard makes it to where you take no passive damage whatsoever. That includes Burn, that includes Poison, that includes Entry Hazards, that includes Life Orb Recoil, so you can run Life Orb for free on this thing.
Yeah.
So it's just it's a Pokemon you definitely need to support, because it is weak to Houndoom, it is weak to Drapion, it is weak to, well, I wouldn't say weak to Sneasel, but like Sneasel just easily picks it off.
Yeah.
But it is a very worthwhile Pokemon to use in the tier right now.
I do want to say that the Calm Mindset beats fat teams outright.
Yes.
Because they cannot status it at all, unless Thunder Wave and Seismitoad like full paras to death. They can't. And I also want to say that he did say it's weak to Drapion, he did say it's weak to Houndoom, but it is also faster than them. So that allows for some mind games. It also has access to Thunder Wave as well. And with Magic Guard, I've even seen a Focus Sash set. Though the Focus Sash, I think, set was more common before. I saw it with when Scrafty had just been in the tier. People would run like Focus Sash, Dazzling Gleam, Thunder Wave as well. But again, it does have the coverage. And another like just scary set. Calm Mind just outright beats fat teams. Calm Mind Store Power outright beats fat teams. They cannot do anything to it at all.
Yeah, actually, on the Calm Mind set, I like running Air Slash just so you don't have to get as many boosts to be threatening.
Yeah.
And you obviously have
hit the
nothing
dark
that's
types.
immune to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, Calm Mind Air Slash I really like because you can run Flame Orb on that, and you don't immediately have to set up. Like if the opponent has something like Drapion or Spiritomb or Escavalier, like they're probably gonna, like once they see Flame Orb, they're probably gonna try to switch that in before like you get out of hand. You could just hit them with Psycho Boost, switch back out, or Psycho Boost, Psycho Shift. but basically, if you're unfamiliar, Psycho Shift will shift your own status conditions onto the target. So that Drapion is just switched in, that's maybe trying to Pursuit Trap you, and it just got burned. It's not going to be doing crap to you, and it also makes it to where opponents can't paralyze you, because it obviously inflicts you with the burn, but you're not taking damage from it because of Magic Guard. So
Exactly.
it's almost like a pseudo status absorber. You can switch it in once that's activated. You can switch it into Thunder Wave. You can switch it into Sleep Powder, etc.
It's just such a scary Pokemon to deal with. I know on the fatter teams that I was running, my main way of dealing with this thing was like maybe getting a little bit of chip damage off with Scald or Seismitoad, switching to Dugtrio on a Calm Mind, and then scare it out and try and Pursuit Trap it with a Choice Band of Pursuit. And that would be like my way of dealing with it with like a fatter teams. Fatter teams really do not have the power to deal with this Pokemon, especially after it starts boosting, whether it be Calm Mind or Cosmic Power. And I think Cosmic Power, though it's more gimmicky, is definitely scary in its own right. You're boosting both of its defenses to a Pokemon that doesn't take status damage at all, and has reliable recovery and roost, and has great speed. So it's a scary Pokemon just for all teams, I think.
Yeah, I feel like the reason Cosmic Power is so gimmicky is the fact that it has to run Stored Power.
Yeah.
Because you're not boosting special attack, and that just means, like, pretty much any Dark type with Cleric support is going to beat that. Like because all you have to do,
straight up Houndoom.
yeah, or Houndoom just straight up beats it. Pretty much any hard hitting Fire type can beat it. Like whenever I see, and this is kind of like basically whenever I see Flame Orb, like I'll probably immediately switch in Delphox if I have it, because it's immune to burn. I can boost up alongside it. At the same time, I'm boosting my special attack to where it's not going to overwhelm me. And as soon as like we're both at +6, like Fire Blast is still going to be doing enough to a KO.
To a KO, yep.
And then like, oh, I have a +6 Delphox. I hope you have priority somewhere.
Yeah.
Or something faster.
Exactly. It's such an awkward Pokemon, but it's good. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, it's awkward in a good way.
It's tricky. It's tricky to deal with. You don't know the set right away, and that's how. Like, it's hard to find an initial switch in. I feel
you don't know his coverage right away.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that's the thing. Like, even the Roost 3 attack set, like, you know, about the only move I ever know it's going to have is Heat Wave.
Yeah.
Because it honestly needs that. Otherwise, Escavalier beats it. But it can run either stab. For a stab move, it can run Air Slash or Psychic.
Yeah.
It can run Energy Ball, Dazzling Gleam, Dark Pulse, even Flash Cannon if you want to get rid of Diancie.
Yeah.
So like it can run 4 different moves in that second coverage slot. Like what is it like? Okay, what is my actual switch in for this thing?
Yeah.
Like what is actually safe? Because obviously if it doesn't have Dark Pulse or Air Slash, your Psychic types are generally safe. Obviously, if it doesn't have Flash Cannon, Diancie is safe, but if it does, it just immediately drops. And you're probably using that to take on other stuff as well.
Exactly.
If it's not running Energy Ball, then you can deal with it with Alomomola and other bulky waters, but if it is, they're not safe. So it's one of those things that you have to scout its coverage to know what you're switching
and it might be too late by the time you do it.
And I was going to say, by that time, it's probably already too late because it's done damage to you.
Yeah. So you definitely want to hit this thing before it starts boosting. If it's not a booster, you want to find out right away. And be careful because, again, that's just scary Pokemon to deal with.
The last thing I want to mention with it, I know we've been on it for a little while, but it does have Tinted Lens for another ability, and normally that would be really good on an offensive Pokemon because it means your resisted hits hit for neutral damage.
Yeah.
But Magic Guard is just so important for anything Sigilyph does because it makes it to where it's not worn down by Life Orb Recoil, it doesn't take Stealth Rock damage, it doesn't take burn or poison damage or anything like that, so it's really about the only Pokemon I think that has Tinted Lens for an ability that is actually not.
Yeah, it's outclassed. It's outclassed by Magic Guard 100%. It even has Wonder Skin, which is also another like pretty cool ability. But status moves with accuracy checks are 50% accurate when used on this Pokemon. That's such a cool ability, but Magic Guard completely outclasses that. So
yeah,
like,
I think it's the only Pokemon that has Wonder Skin. I might be wrong on that. But
no,
I think
Venomoth.
Oh, okay, yeah. So I was wrong on that.
But Yeah, next up, and this will be the last Pokemon that we cover today, guys, is Slowking, and you can go ahead and start it off, bruh.
Alright, so Slowking is one of those Pokemon that has always been good in RU, even ever since Black and White. Like, even Black and White, it was one of the top 5 Pokemon in Black and White. And it's always been good. Even with Alomomola running around and being so good, Slowking still manages to find its way onto plenty of teams, simply because it has Regenerator, it has more offensive capabilities than Alomomola does. It could run Scald, Thunder Wave on the same set, and those are like 2 of the 3 best moves in the game just by themselves. It's got part Psychic type, so it can resist Fighting type moves, which is definitely really nice.
It downright resists Embor's Dual Stab.
Yeah, and that's really nice because Embor is really good without Alomomola.
Not much in the tier could say that they outright resist Embor. Obviously Wall Charge, but yeah, you can keep going, bro.
Yeah. But basically, this thing it has versatility too. It can go fully physically defensive, like with Scald, Slack Off, Thunder Wave, Psyshock. You can run Assault Vest to just make sure it stops any and all Delphox that you're facing. It has Future Sight, which is not a move you see very much in competitive play, but that's like a 120 base power move that will hit
on top of the damage they're taking that turn.
Yeah, and it basically, like, the opponent's going to switch on a Dark type probably as you use Future Sight. You can switch out to something that forces that Dark type out, like say maybe your own Embor, because Embor can check most Dark types.
Yeah.
And
you can run Specs and Assault Vest or Mind Play with that. Just saying, everybody. Like, there's a bunch of options with Future Sight.
Yeah, I personally like Assault Vest simply because it gives you a better chance against Delphox. You also get a Mega Camera check with Assault Vest, which is really, really good.
Yeah.
Like, not many Pokemon claim they are just outright not to it KO'd by anything Mega Camera has. Assault Vest Slowking can claim that.
Yeah.
And obviously, another set that I do like that I was playing around with a little bit is Trick Room, Offensive Trick Room. With Nasty Plot, and it is actually funny how few teams are ready for that. I've outright just won games because, like, my opponent's answer to Slowking is usually for a defensive Slowking, but when you're running max special attack, you can boost with Nasty Plot. Like, your opponent's not prepared for that. Nasty Plot's like on like 5 or 6% of Slowkings that are run. You're not really preparing for that. Like, I'll admit, even I don't prepare for that very often.
Yeah, I mean, and it's a slow Pokemon too, base 30.
Yeah, when I see that, it's like, oh crap, I don't have a switch in for this. Like, I don't have an answer for this. Whoops.
Though I do want to note with that set, because you're actually running Trick Room and Nasty Plot, you don't have reliable recovery outside of Regenerator or your own leftovers, so you do have to be careful about switching into certain Pokemon.
Yeah,
And also being toxic on that set is a lot more annoying than I think on a defensive set, because defensive sets would usually run Heal Bell support, whereas an offensive Nasty Plot Trick Room might not have Heal Bell support on the team. That's just something to note. Might not. Again, you can still have Deancey on the team, but it's definitely a hard hitter.
Yeah, and even the defensive set, like, it won't be staying in for more than 2 to 3 turns at a time. Anyway, so Toxic doesn't, even if you don't have Cleric support, Toxic's not going to be like, oh my gosh, this is so annoying.
It has Slack Off and Regenerator, whereas this set is meant to sweep.
Yeah.
So,
like, you can still, like, check stuff early on, like with Skulls and stuff, but at some point you're wanting to sweep with it. You're wanting to deal damage with it.
I would definitely try and burn Alomomola or Venusaur before you actually start setting up. Just so they don't recover enough, because then Alomomola actually stalls you out at +2 Psyshocks. So you definitely want to be able to burn it with Skull. Just spam Skull before you do anything like that.
Yeah.
Another thing I want to mention is if you're running the Assault Vest set, run Fire Blast on it or Flamethrower, because you can deal with a Scavalier. And you're always forced to switch. So I would definitely run Fire move on that.
Yeah, I feel like Assault Vest, you can run Skull, Future Sight, Fire Blast, and then last slot, I think most people run Dragon Tail.
Yeah.
Just to, like, keep Setup Sweepers from setting up on it, or or it's just general if you're running it with Spike support.
Yeah, I mean, it's not bad with Future Sight either.
Yeah, because then it gets rid of the Dark type that they're trying to switch in to negate Future Sight, and it's like, nope, you're not doing that. And especially if you bring in something like Venusaur, for example, off of that Dragon Tail, it's probably going down to that future site.
Yep.
And you don't have to deal with it anymore. Like that's like a major threat gone.
Exactly.
Just immediately. So you can have some. It's not super reliable. I think physically defensive is probably the most reliable set Slowking has. But obviously the Assault Vest, Trick Room, even Specs
Have their uses.
are
Yeah.
useful. Yeah, have
Yeah.
their uses, and that just shows Slowking's versatility. Like that's what it has over other bulky waters. Most bulky waters are one-dimensional, whereas Slowking, you've got 3, 4, maybe even 5 sets you can run them with it and
Yeah.
be fine.
Yeah. Another thing I want to say about Slowking is the psychic type that pursuit trappers have to think twice about pursuit trapping, because if they scald and get burnt on their pursuit, they're slacked off and they're easily dealt with from there. Like if, for example, if Scarf Drapion tries to pursuit trap you, I would always go for knockoff, by the way, with Scarf Drapion in the face of a Slowking. But if it does try to pursuit trap you, gets burnt, it's useless. Spiritomb tries to pursuit trap you, gets burnt, it's useless. So it's like things like that, like Slowking just with Scald in itself just has the power to do it. And it's also another Pokemon. I mentioned how it resists Emboar's Dual Stab. It also resists Medicham's Dual Stab, and it's one of the reasons why Medicham has to run Thunder Punch. In this tier.
It's the main reason, really,
Yeah.
that and Jellicent. But another thing I want to mention on Slowking, like you mentioned, like pursuit trapping it, like it is really hard to pursuit trap
Yeah.
Slowking. Not just because it's Scald, but because it has Regenerator.
Exactly.
Like say, Scarf Drapion, I think that's like doing what, about 60%.
Yeah.
Even when Slowking switches out, as long as it lives, it's getting half of that back because
Yeah.
of Regenerator.
Yeah.
So it's not just it's a psychic type that is not nearly as weak to pursuit trapping as most other psychic types are, because it just has Regenerator to negate usually around half the damage it takes from a pursuit.
I also want to say that it does have access to Calm Mind, and because of Slowking's natural Spadaf, you easily can beat Venusaur. Defensive
Yeah.
Venusaur easily, especially offensive Venusaur. You definitely need 2 boosts, and then you need to go for Slack Off like immediately as they Leaf Storm. But after that, you can beat it. But you definitely can beat defensive Venusaur. Defensive Venusaur isn't even KOing you with Giga Drain, if not barely on any max HP set. It's barely KOing if it even is. And after Calm Mind, it's not at all. Make sure you have a Sleep Fodder though, because it will just put you to sleep if you don't. But again, Calm Mind Slowking does have that option. Again, I would say burn Alamola, Scout if it has knockoff or toxic. Maybe get rid of Registeel also as well. But Calm Mind Slowking, Duckshire is also just another Pokemon that pairs so well because it gets rid of Registeel, which should toxic it, as well as Magneton, which can threaten it with the Thunderbolt, or weaken it with Volt Switch and go out into a Pursuit Trapper from there, or a Dark type in general.
Yeah. Another thing on Slowking about the Calm Mindset, like it was like really really good like a couple of months ago, but I feel like ever since Tangrowth left, like one of the main reasons is the fact that it could just set up all over Tangrowth. Like it didn't care about what Tangrowth did, because Tangrowth almost never ran Sleep Powder. Like it was usually Assault Vest or maybe Life Orb, and as soon as you got one Calm Mind, like you didn't care about it.
Yeah.
But once that left, and once the Moongus left, I feel like it just kind of fell out of favor because now it just kind of just gets toxic like half the time, like when it's trying to set up. Because obviously Alomomola runs toxic, Registeel runs toxic, like Blastoise runs toxic, like so many things just run toxic, and that just makes it harder for Slowking to set up on stuff with Calm Mind. Like you can still like run it, I just don't exactly personally like it.
Yeah, but I mean, if you pair it with Venusaur, Venusaur doesn't
like,
care. Venusaur takes on everything.
I mean, like I said, you can still run it. Like it's still decent. It's just something it's just personal preference. I don't exactly like it.
I actually love knockoff Venusaur with this set because knockoff, getting rid of Alamola's leftovers, getting rid of Registeel's leftovers in recovery, it just allows Slowking to better beat them. Yeah, do you have anything else to say about Slowking?
Not really. It's just it's always been a good Pokemon. It's just for, I guess, history buffs. Like it was UU for a short time in Gen 6, but it's always been I think at its very worst, I want to say Slowking was like A- rank, and that's over Black and White and XY and ORAS. So it's always been good. Like at the very least, it's always been good and worthwhile to use. And I think right now it's like A rank. So, and that's with Alomomola running around all over the place.
Slowking would have been one of the main. If it's a Self-Vest, it's usually a pivot to X-Bot just to see what move it goes for. Yeah. And then you can switch from there because you do have a Regenerator, so you do get that back. But I think that's pretty much it for Slowking.
Yeah, that's all I got.
Anyway, I hope you guys all enjoyed. Again, this is an educational series where you learn. You can just chill while you're listening to this. Shout out to Matt Houston for the custom beat in the back. And yeah, big shout out to Eon. You guys can check out his Twitter down below. He also goes by the name EonX on Pokemon Showdown. So if you ever want to talk to him, he's always willing to do that and just discuss things. He's a great dude.
Yeah.
But
I will say, like with Showdown, like if I'm ever like laddering on an alt, it will probably be Monado X because like I love Xenoblade Chronicles. So that like if you don't see that name there, just kind of scroll down, and if you see Monado X, yeah, that's probably me. Like I'm probably just laddering. So,
but yeah, this
I'll
will
still
be
answer your questions. But, yeah.
This is the second to last part. The next part will actually be the final part of the RU tier list discussion. And I do want to say that we are taking into account the Pokemon that are banned from NU. So Sock and Sceptile will be part of the RU tier list discussion, and we'll be talking about their uses. But thank you everybody for watching once again, and I'll see you guys later. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.